Hello and welcome to Python with Andrew. And I want to jump back and look at dictionaries again. Uh, I have a number of questions about people saying, how are dictionaries related to objects? Because everything is an object in Python. And when we first talked about dictionaries, we often just gloss over the fact that it's an object. So I thought I'd spend a bit of time exploring what is the similarities with object-oriented programs like dictionaries, but also where there's a few little differences, if you like, the way that Python treats it. So let's jump over and have a look at some code. And let's have a look at how the dictionary behaves either as an object or not. So normally, if we did a dictionary, we would do something like this: inventory equals open curly brackets, peanuts 10. This is my inventory of food that I like to eat, chocolate. 8, and so on. We could add more and more items there. That's how we'd normally write a creation of a dictionary. And that doesn't really look like an object, but it is. Inventory is an object, and the object is type dictionary. And in that dictionary, it has key and value pairs. Now, we could equally write it like this, which makes it look a little bit more like an object. And I'm going to use the dictionary function, or dic function, which creates a dictionary. And the way we would peanuts equal 10, chocolate equals 8, Coke equals 5, and so on. All right, so I could create a dictionary like that. And that looks a bit more like a creation of an object because we're using a function, a bit like the initialization function, or a bit like when you create an instance of a class. Now, they're both equivalent. And if I, in here, put print inventory, and then if I do the same afterwards, obviously I'm overriding the variables, so let me do that. If I do both of those, I should get dictionary built the first way and then built the second way, which I do. And they look exactly the same, except the fact I put an extra element in the first one. So you've got two ways of creating a dictionary from, as a starting point. Of course, then when we add dictionary items to a dictionary, we do things like inventory popcorn equals 12, right? We use that terminology, which again doesn't look like we're creating an object. And if I print this out, you should see it going to be very similar to that. So you can see that we are creating an inventory. We're using different methods, if you like, or different ways of doing that. This one looks probably more like the object, but I must say that's the least often used. This terminology at the top here is used, and this one here is used. Now, equally down the bottom here, we could use inventory dot update, and update creates a new or adds an element to a dictionary. And let me pick some more food. So what else can I have? Let's have some other drink, some more drink. 12 of those, right? So that's using a method. And if I print that out, we'll see we'll just keep adding to the dictionary. So there's a different way of adding it. Now, this one looks more like object-oriented because we're saying for the object, we're going to use a method of update. And I've already introduced other methods, and I'll touch on them again in a minute. But that looks more like the way we do objects. We do object dot method, and then whatever the arguments are for that method. In this case, update adds a new one to the end, right? And then we've seen other methods like inventory dot get the peanuts. Let's say I want to print that out. That'll get me the number of peanuts that I have using the get method. So again, that looks more like an object, right? And then I can use print keys, or inventory.keys. Right, and that will get me all the keys of the dictionary and return it as a list, right? And my favorite that I use a lot in loops, inventory dot items. If I do that, I get both the key and the value, right? And you can see them down there, that each as a tuple, and I could use those going forward, especially very, very useful in looping and looping and looping. So as I started to use these, it looks more and more like an object, right? We've got the update method, the get method, the keys method, and there's a whole heap of other methods that we could have looked at. We could use values, we could use pop, we can use clear, we can use copy. There's a whole list of different methods we can use with the object of inventory. I must say that although there's a lot of different options, what we tend to find is people go back and use the same ones over and over again. And this one here, this top method of creating a list, a dictionary, is probably more often used in line 11. And this method of adding a new element is more used in update. And then the last few, certainly items is probably the one most used. And remember, get here, that's the same as if I said print inventory, open bracket, peanuts. That's exactly the same as the one below it. So you can see that Python's got this idea that it's an object, so it's got methods, and you could be strict in using that. But it's also said, look, we want to make it a bit easier to understand. So we're going to allow ones like line 20 there. We're going to allow you to add using line 14 and things like that. So that's not an example of, well, that's to me a good example of where Python says, yes, we've got objects. Objects has methods. We're going to be fairly rigorous about that. And there's, let's say, 10 methods. But we're also going to make it a bit easier for you to use by having some other ways of doing that. So my recommendation is to look at all these sorts of things, because you're going to see it different times. You're going to see different ones. So you do need to be aware of how other people might use them. Having said that, you might choose, look, this is my preferred way of doing it. So I'm going to use line 14. I'm not going to use line 17, which, for example, that's the way I do it. I use line 8. I don't use line 11, right? I use line 20, not 21. Okay, so you might have your preferred method, but be aware that there's a number of different ways of looking at this, because you will see other code like that, and you will need to learn. So thanks again. I hope you get something out of this particular section on dictionaries, and I'll come back in a while with another one.